Well, you've said a lot, and I think for our listeners, I think we should give them some examples of some of the different types. Now, I know you've talked about in we've talked about behavioral CBT, but I want to give examples, and I want to give examples of some parent kind of aspects to this. And also, I want you to talk about the motivational interviewing and the insight oriented aspect of SCAT. Can you touch on that? And then we'll go into examples.
Yeah, so motivational interviewing is another aspect of SCAT, and that's really important, especially for our older individuals when we might not be experiencing as much motivation to work through goals. Maybe we've been working on treatment throughout most of our life and we just feel comfortable, or it feels too scary or hard to even think about taking a step ahead. So we kind of just pull back. And so motivational interviewing is that idea that we really meet someone where they're at, right? So if someone's saying like, I don't want help, right? But maybe if we look at like a motivation scale and 10 is the most motivated, like I do want to work on things, and 0 is like, get me out of the room, right? I don't want to be here. My parents are forcing me here. We try to talk about, where are you on that motivation scale? Now, many individuals, even when you're at a 1 or higher, you are motivated, but maybe there's just certain barriers there. And that's something to be thinking about. And a lot of times I'm that provider that helps give a little psychoeducation about what motivation looks like, normalizing the fact that it's okay that we don't feel super high on the motivation scale, but also sometimes that could stem from the fact that it probably feels really hard to even think about. And sometimes I'll start to see teens kind of give like a subtle head nod, or they start to relate to that. And we really we meet them where they're at, right? I ask teens a lot of times, hey, why don't you write down some of the goals that you want to work on? They might not even have to do with communication. Sometimes I have teens that write down, I want to be in a relationship, I want to form a new friendship, I want to finally go to, a baseball game with my cousin. Like, you might not think that has to do with communication, but there's a lot of communication that has to occur to start those processes. So I think that
Wow,
that's a
I
part of.
love this. I love that you just said that because I'm sorry for interjecting, but I
No, it's
need to.
okay.
No, no, no. I need to because when we have a teen, let's say, an older child or teen, and I'm not saying some of these don't relate to younger children, but the majority are older kids and teens, and they're not motivated. So 0 to 10, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. One of the things that I've done, which is similar to what you're saying, is like I know this particular child loves baseball, plays baseball, loves baseball, not able to play on a team yet, but loves it, plays with cousins, dad in the backyard, and even mom. They all play, and it's something he loves, but his anxiety stops him from participating. But he loves nothing more than to go to in Philadelphia the Phillies game. But if I present to him, like when I talk about kind of wanting to be able to communicate more, wanting to be able to do things, you see the avoidance. And we'll talk about why that is in a second. But if I said, let's say you were able to get tickets for the Phillies game and you see the teen light up. Let's call him Barry. Barry lights up. And you're like, okay, now you go to the Phillies game and you're with your older brother, and all of a sudden your brother gets a call, something really important from school or something. But you're at will call and your brother can't go up to the will call. So you need to be in line. Like that's something like you got to get the tickets. So how are you going to get the tickets? So you kind of see him kind of think and ponder. And then I say, going up and asking for tickets or even handing a note to tickets, like that probably feels super, super hard. And that could be like a 5 out of 5 for you. And you just kind of see Barry just kind of sitting there, maybe not even making eye contact because deep down he feels ashamed by that, right? He feels like not like he feels a bit of a failure. And I'll say, well, that's why you're here. You're here so that we can help you get the tickets to see that Phillies game. So I have to identify with something so that they can see, this makes sense. Because our most unmotivated teens, assuming that they're pretty neurotypical, because kids on the autism spectrum, we tend to see lack of internal motivation for change because they don't necessarily understand that. They don't see it. They may want something, but what it takes to get there is something challenging that I see in the autism spectrum disorder community. But if they're more neurotypical and they want it, that's when they start to see little light bulbs go off. And I go, that's
Yeah.
why you're here. But when a child or a teen is so avoidant, it's usually a result of not meeting them where they are and
Right.
expecting them to do more. So over time, they become more avoidant, and or we're missing a key why that's preventing them.
That's true. I mean, I think a lot of times, like, we definitely been finding recently, like, we've been doing a lot of, further ADHD testing, some learning processing. And I think that's actually a huge component at times where kids might not even realize, or parents might not even realize that these kids or teens are having really a lot of trouble in the academic setting. And when we learn more about, oh, well, they're having trouble starting, initiating tasks, or having trouble moving from one task to the next, and maybe parents are still seeing that, at home when they're doing homework, there could be something underlying that's going on that's making that more challenging.
Or they can't engage with peers at all. They're uninterested, they're not
Right.
they don't seem to want to connect
Mhm.
internally. So
Exactly.
why is that? Is it the anxiety stopping them, or is there something else going on that's causing that? Like, I'm not that interested. They don't look over a lot. They're not interested in the social dynamics. We've got to figure that out because that's more than anxiety usually.
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. So I think as we're talking, and I know we actually did kind of tap a little bit more into like that insight oriented aspect because that really stems more from like the psychoeducation piece, giving them kind of those words for for what's kind of going on internally. And we do also implement a lot of different like reward systems where, we think about for younger kids, maybe it's a fun sticker chart. For older teens, maybe it's more internal motivation, but maybe they are tracking some of the goals. And again, we're not tracking just for talking, but we're really honoring kind of that social communication bridge and thinking about, where were they on the bridge when they went to a restaurant, right? So sometimes I'll give like 5 stickers, for a younger child if they were comfortable telling the waiter, maybe 3 if they were comfortable telling mom or dad, and then maybe 1 if they were comfortable pointing. So we're obviously still respecting the fact that obviously communication verbally might feel scarier or harder for someone, but we also do want to, give them a reward for handing something over because for some children, that's a huge deal. And so that's why we talk a lot about how it's not just about quote unquote brave talking, because we feel like courage isn't always that loud. It could stem from more even non-verbally in the standpoint of like for some of our kids, even just walking outside and handing something over is huge, And so so I do think again that insight oriented piece is really important in kind of giving them those tools, to kind of gain that insight, to gain kind of that knowledge of like, oh, this makes sense why this is a little bit more challenging for me.